everybody, and welcome to Innovate Newport. This is our 6th session of the Blue NU, Understanding Our Blue Economy. We have 2 more. One next week will be on Blue Tech, and then the following one will be kind of a culmination, and we're calling it Looking Ahead. So anyway, today I'm really excited to introduce you to 3 panelists who are going to be talking about the marine trades industry as it relates to the blue economy. So I'll do a quick introduction and then they will take it away. So first we have Jay Coogan, who is the president of IYRS, School of Technology and Trades. This is his 3rd year. Prior to coming to IYRS, Jay was president of the Minneapolis College of Art and Design and provost of Rhode Island School of Design. IYRS has 5 programs of study encompassing the marine trades and modern manufacturing. Just this past week, IYRS was just named, do you want to say it?
We were just named to a group of the best maker schools throughout the world by Newsweek. Very exciting.
Congratulations. Then we have Evan Ridley, who's the Director of Environmental Programs at the Rhode Island Marine Trade Association. Since 2017, the focus of his work has centered on the development and growth of several sustainability initiatives in the recreational boating industry. This includes the creation and launch of the Rhode Island Fiberglass Vessel Recycling Pilot Project, an effort to establish alternatives to landfilling for end-of-life fiberglass boats and their materials. He actively shares his research on this topic with a growing network of international stakeholders and collaborators. Thank you, Evan. Finally, we have Neal, Harrell, who is the founder and president of Brooks Marine Group, a Newport-based search firm that recruits professionals for the recreational marine industry. Brooks Marine Group's clients include boat manufacturers, boat yards, marinas, and boat dealerships. Welcome to the 3 of you. We're so glad you're here. Since it's a small group, we will definitely have time for Q&A, and I'm sure we'll have some lively discussion. We will also be recording this session and sharing that with whomever would like that. We have, Innovate Newport has a YouTube channel, and those videos will also be going up on our website. So without further ado, Jay?
Thank you, Molly. Yes. Molly, thanks so much for organizing this whole series. I think this is really important for the entire community, beyond Newport, Rhode Island, New England, just thinking about the advantages of thinking cohesively about the blue economy. And happy to be up here with Evan and Neal, and both of them, and we work closely with both their organizations, so it's great to be here. So IYRS, I'm going to pretend that some of you don't know about IYRS, but IYRS is located on Main Street. We occupy 3/4 buildings, and we are a program that's been in existence for 25 years, and I'll tell you a little bit about IYRS, and I also want to talk about the evolution of how people get involved in the marine trades, because it's definitely changed over time. So earlier, and this isn't going anywhere near as early as people started building boats. I was going to put a picture of some Egyptians making boats, but boats have been around as long as humans have been around. And the only thing that is different is that the construction techniques have gotten more complex, and more amenities have been added to those boats over time. If you think of a coracle, a little round boat with some bent pieces of wood and some hide attached to it, or a birch bark canoe, you start to think about how the desire to get on the water and be able to float on the water and move things, including people on the water, has been a really strong human desire. But how did people get involved when, quote, the marine trade started to evolve into, big business, quite honestly? The Winslow Fuller painting where there's some kids playing with a little model sailboat, a big schooner being built in the background really tells you the story of, young kids hanging around the boatyard, seeing their parents working on a boat, getting involved in the trades. That was kind of the way it worked. You saw somebody else doing it, you felt a desire to do it, you loved the water, you went out sailing. You can see some British workers here working in the 1940s in the hull of a big wooden vessel, and a young man who was probably an apprentice for a boat building group, working on an individual boat himself. So that was kind of an apprenticeship system, a word of mouth, a family kind of connection that would bring you into the boat industry. IYRS has, changed that, and the world has changed a lot since that time period. But a lot of the trades that we started with were related to building wooden boats. So when we were founded as a school that was looking to restore wooden boats. It was really the hulls, the decks, the interiors that we were focused on. And we've only evolved recently to include the other parts of the boat building industry. This is an example of some IYRS graduates. These 12 IYRS alumni worked on the Mayflower 2 project, and they're standing in the hull of Mayflower 2 down at Mystic Seaport. So we've taught people, sort of going back not to the origins of making boats, but certainly some of the same tools that people would use to make boats traditionally. And those students have gone on to have careers making, in this case, Matt Brown, who's sort of standing in the middle with the long dark hair and the beard. He was one of the lead shipwrights on this particular project. So the boat building world really changed in sort of the 17 and 1800s when the world of sail changed to the world of steam power, and then internal combustion engines, diesel engines, and then outboard engines, which are pretty ubiquitous in the modern age of boat building. And along with that change, IYRS also changed because we could no longer just focus on wooden boats. We had to think about composite boats, which you can see one example down at the bottom. That has really changed. Also, the systems on boats have gotten far more sophisticated than they were, where, in a sailing boat, obviously there's rigging and sails and all of that, but it's basically the steering mechanism that's the sort of primary mechanical system on a boat. Whereas now you've got an iPad and you're checking on your battery life and you're checking, all your systems from one station, and you're changing everything in a coordinated way, which is so different from the way it started out. So at IYRS, we have 4 programs that are individual programs and one program that is a combined program. So we have a boat building and restoration program, which teaches people how to use the hand tools and power tools associated with traditional wooden boat building, plank on frame. We really believe in continuing that tradition because while they could be learning to do, coal molded or wet system or something like that, this really gives them a full range of woodworking skills that are only possible by doing a boat constructed in the manner that we believe teaches the most and gives the most value. We also have a composites technology program. While it's not entirely focused on the marine industry, some of our students are interested in marine projects. That's where the kind of IYRS sort of skirts between the marine trades and modern manufacturing. And then our digital modeling and fabrication programs, and we have one of our graduates of that sitting here, focuses on learning how to use laser cutting, 3D printing, CNC machining, and you know, the woman who's here, whose background is a jeweler, so we have people from a wide variety of backgrounds at the school, has made a locking mechanism that could be applicable to the furniture, to boats, to any number of things. So again, that's a wide-ranging program that teaches fundamental skills of operating software and machinery in order to produce designs. And so it's embedded in it is design as well as you know, learning how to use the tools. And then lastly, we have a marine systems program, and you can see one of our students standing in front of something that we call a simulation panel, where we organize all the electronics on a boat on one side, and if you were to flip around the back side of it, all the systems, so the plumbing systems, the tanks, the hydraulic steering is on there, the radar's on there, it's all hooked up to a battery, set of batteries down below, and everybody has to get those systems that are on there operational, running off of their batteries. In addition to that, they also learned how to work on repairing and you know, putting together and taking apart diesel engines as well as outboard engines. So our boat building program is 2 years long. Our composites program is 6 months long. Digital modeling and fabrication is 9 months long, and marine systems is 6 months long. And we've created a combined program between composites and marine systems that essentially takes those two separate programs, puts them together, and a student completes it in 11 months. And then, as is the case with all of our students, they do an externship at the end of that program at a company of their choosing. And then hopefully they've made a good choice and the company is happy with the work that they do, and they go on to work in those trades. We are also evolving the marine trades in terms of the diversity of people that come to IYRS. We've been consistently growing the number of female students that come to IYRS, and we also seek out people of color to come to IYRS as well to help diversify the marine industry in terms of the kind of workforce that you'll see in the marine trades. So that philosophically is something that we really believe in at IYRS, and we consistently try and do that. I'm just going to show you one more slide. So I showed you the Mayflower. We also had 12 alumni who worked on not only the Mule, but also Defender and Patriot on the build program for that. So those students were involved in building these very highly sophisticated boats, which is certainly the direction that racing is going to go, and probably as all that technology, just like space technology trickles down into civilian technology, the kind of technology that's used in sophisticated racing boats trickles down into the regular kind of boats that people use, or smaller boats that people race. And so you see a lot of foiling boats these days, and I think, you know, that it's just one aspect of some of the changes. One other thing that we do is we partner with people, so I just want to mention that. We partner with, right now, a company called Flux Marine. They're a small startup company in East Greenwich, Rhode Island, that's developed an electric outboard engine. Very unique belt drive engine, everything started from scratch. Not sort of, you know, putting electronics into it. Got some bug chasing me around. Not something that's plugged into, you know, an old outboard that you stick electronics onto, but, you know, really building it from the ground up. So we've got 2 of our students who have been working for that company, but we've also had that company working at IYRS, thanks to a couple of grants from the state of Rhode Island to support that project. So we're really proud of not only staying with tradition, but also moving forward with sophisticated technologies at the school. So thank you. I'm going to pass this to Evan, unless there are any questions that anybody has. and hopefully this moth will go away.
All right. Thank you, Jay. And I guess before I get started, I'll just echo the sentiment that you shared. I'm really grateful to Innovate Newport for putting this series on. It's really exciting to see some life in this building and activity in this building. We're very fortunate as the Rhode Island Marine Trades Association to have our new offices located upstairs. And my colleagues Susan and Brian spend a lot of time there. It's nice to be in a room with a few more bodies for a change, and really nice to have a chance to talk to you guys about what Rhode's been doing when it comes to evaluating alternatives for end-of-life vessels and the management of their materials. It was really, I think, impactful to hear Jay talk a little bit about the history of boat building and the advancement of technology and techniques over time. I think that what happens to end-of-life vessels, the beneficial reuse or recycling of the material that is in a vessel at the end of its life. It's a great example of, I think, the blue economy sort of trying to work its way into the fabric and the existing tapestry of an industry that's historic and has long-standing practices. And composite materials and fiberglass are kind of a nice bridge for Rhode Island between the past and the present. This is one of the first places that composite boat building was really pioneered. Use of that material really made recreational boating accessible and affordable, and helped the sport and what we know as boating become what it is today. But at that time when innovation was in full swing, we weren't thinking about 40 years down the line, the time horizon that exists for all of these products and what happens to those materials. Obviously, that's been a broader cultural shift for all of us outside of boating and the marine industry. But thinking about what happens to these materials and how we can take advantage of their characteristics at the end of life is something that Rhode Island is poised and in a position to be very helpful in, just as we were when we were first showing the values of these materials at the outset. So again, if you don't know about RIMTA, we represent just about 300 different marine industry businesses across the state, everything from globally recognized brands all the way down to small family-owned businesses, cross-manufacturing, retail, service providing. Within our role as the hub of boating in the Northeast and more broadly in the country, I think we're in a very unique position to share experiences from Rhode Island as they relate to the industry, best management practices, opportunities, things that we've done to face common challenges, and that national role is something that has allowed us to develop very strong working relationships with other marine trade associations representing different states and regions, but also organizations that work within the industry at a national level and work to help instill some of those best management practices and concepts on a broader level. And environmentally, something that RIMTA has been getting more engaged in is helping members address challenges and opportunities when it comes to environment and sustainable practice. And so end-of-life vessel management was one of those glaring issues for both Rhode Island with one state central landfill, but more broadly the boating community as a whole. And back in 2016, the University of Rhode Island started funding research on what alternatives might exist. We knew a lot about the waste management issues that these boats presented, but what we didn't know and what we're learning more about now is some of the environmental impacts. Having this material in the environment, we spend so much time talking about the presence of plastics in our oceans and the role of microplastics. These boats are, in a lot of ways, macroplastic items that are out there for years and years and years, and there are consequences. Some studies in the UK are now showing that fiberglass, both in glass strand form and in the polymer molecules that come from the resin, we're seeing that stuff in soft tissues of shellfish and other organisms. So there are long-term implications of using this material, and having somewhere to manage it responsibly at the end of life is an important step to figuring out some of those broader life cycle challenges. And at URI, we started to tackle some of that and really look to see what examples existed beyond boats, and that's where we came into the European picture. Back in 2007, 2008, the European Commission passed sweeping legislation on waste management. In some countries, these legislation acts were taken to very intense measures. For example, in Germany, the landfilling of fiberglass was outlawed, and that really forced the hand of heavy industry and regulators to work together to identify potential solutions, and that's where cement manufacturing comes into the picture. Globally, cement manufacturing is a really energy-intensive and raw material-intensive practice, and so cement manufacturers are constantly looking for waste streams, raw materials, byproducts that have certain characteristics that can help them offset both the footprint of the cement that's manufactured and the emissions of the kiln itself that's producing this material. And so composites present a really unique opportunity for cement manufacturers. The resin is a source of thermal energy that can help drive down the consumption of traditional fossil fuels, coal, natural gas, and the glass fiber itself is compatible with a lot of the raw materials that cement is made of: silica, sand, calcium carbonate from limestone, things like that. All of these are present in different levels in composites, and so there is this dual value in both being able to offset the use of fossil fuels and reduce CO2 per ton of cement produced, but also stand in and represent tens of tons of material that would otherwise have to be mined from a quarry somewhere. And so this was first proven quite successfully with wind turbine blades on a large scale. We're now seeing in the U.S. renewable energy industry, cement manufacturing partnerships begin with folks that have blades. We really wanted to take this process and try and apply it to the life cycle of a boat. And so that really centered on Rhode Island developing a network of partners who could carry out several key logistic activities around managing this material bank that is a recreational boat, because we all know that there's fabric, there's wood, there's a lot of ancillary components that don't have that same value but may have a traditional recycling outlet or a salvage outlet. And so there are places where this material bank can be broken down over time. Working with marinas, boatyards, salvagers, we've been able to develop practices and protocols for supporting that separation, honing in on the material in an end-of-life hull that can provide this value for a cement manufacturer. Working with a C&D waste recycler in the resource recovery complex to process this material down to a consistency and a size where it's suitable for an end user, and then working with that end user to ensure that the quality and the consistency of what they're seeing actually supports the end result, which is creating cement with a minimized environmental impact. So we've been able to, through a pilot project here, verify that marine industry businesses, waste management partners have the capacity, the capability to do these things and actually meet the standards of a cement partner. And we've been able to do that pretty consistently here in Rhode Island, and now through partnerships with the NOAA Marine Debris Program and others, starting to help other states replicate that process and evaluate what kinds of opportunities or challenges might prevent them from exploring boat recycling on a larger scale. Obviously, this is a costly process. It's not something that, compared to landfilling, is cheap, but it is ultimately something that is more and more appealing as pressures mount for responsibility in the management of materials as well as the cost of landfilling. So this is an idea of what this material looks like when we're done with it. You can see mixed in, you've got a whole bunch of stuff, and we've learned that in this recycled products, there's probably 40% material that's not actually composite material, that still fits into this threshold, that still provides these values. But thinking about further down the line, as recycling technologies evolve, as opportunities for reusing this material evolves, there's going to be more ways to extract value from what we see here. And really having the platform to plug into those kinds of end users is what this project has been so valuable in achieving, is showing that there can be partnerships across these sectors to ultimately come together and carry out specific acts that will promote the reuse of this material in the future. Getting market demand and pushing for the reuse of this material in innovative ways is another question, but having the buy-in from the marine industry to meet in the middle with those end users is something that's been very valuable and something that will continue to help support the development of new opportunities for keeping boats out of landfill. So I'll stop there, but happy to address any specific questions later on.
Very cool. Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Evan. What do they say about if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're probably in the wrong room? I'm in the right room. Molly, thank you for bringing us together. So when Molly reached out and asked me to be a part of this panel, related to the blue economy. It's an expression I had heard, but didn't know much about, frankly. So I did my share of Googling, and basically, it's my understanding that, you know, if you're a business and your business is dependent upon revenues and the like, yet your playground to some degree is the ocean or the waterways, then how can we make them more sustainable? Now, we talk about the blue economy, but I think we need to keep in mind that there's more than just the blue, that the inland lakes, the waterways, the rivers, et cetera, need to be, I think, part of this discussion as well. So I'm a recruiter, and just as Jay assumed that you guys, he's not going to pretend you know everything about IYRS, I'm going to pretend that you don't know everything about headhunting and recruiting. So basically, the way our business works is companies contact us when they have a very strategic staffing need, and they ask us to go out there and source and vet and present talent for that need. And as Molly said earlier, our clients are recreational boat builders, boat yards, marinas, suppliers to the marine industry like engine manufacturers, boat dealerships, brokerage firms, etc. We moved our office to the campus of IYRS in 2010. It was one of the smarter moves we made as a business because it gave us direct access to the future pipeline of talent, and the collaboration that's existed between IYRS and Brooks Marine Group and RIMTA has been nothing short of awesome. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit this evening about how this blue economy is and can impact workforce. I will tell you that right now, I've been a headhunter now for 20 years, and I have never seen a hiring spree like we've seen last year and this year. And for those of you who may not be intimately familiar with the marine industry saw its best year in boat sales in 2020, probably in the last 30 years. We were up about 20%, some companies 30%, and this year we're up about 15 to 17% from last year. The reason being is people look for ways to adapt to COVID, they realized quickly that being amongst family and outdoors and recreating was a great way, an avenue, and that boating speaks to that. And so again, I would have never told you in March of 2020 that our business would be up as significantly as it was by the end of 2020, but sure enough it was. So as it relates to workforce, in the book, The War for Talent, McKinsey talks about the 4 types of organizations that talent tends to gravitate to, okay? The first is the go with the winner. Go with the best company in the marketplace, and that whether that's in the 80s and 90s, the GEs of the world, or the Googles in the 90s and the 2000s, or in the marine industry, the Hinkleys and the Safe Harbors and the Marine Maxes. Go with the biggest, go with the best. So that's one type of company that talent tends to be attracted to. The second is the big risk, big reward. So the startup, we saw a lot of this during the .com. We're seeing a lot of this with emerging technologies. We're seeing a lot of this with companies, again, green and or blue technologies. So the high risk, high reward. The third type of company is what we refer to as the lifestyle company. A company that presents an awesome product, service, or location. And as I try to sell the sizzle of the boat business to folks, particularly folks that might be thinking about entering into the business, i.e. young people, I talk about the lifestyle component. The ability to work on and around the waterfront, on and around boats, to be able to help people recreate and spend time with family and friends. That's the sizzle of our industry. And the last one is the one we're here today to talk about. It's the Save the World company. Okay, it's green, it's windmill, it's power generation, it's solar, and again, I think it speaks to a little bit of the startup as well. So if you look at these 4, go with a winner, high risk, high reward, save the world, and lifestyle, we could check 3 of those boxes easily, right? A lot of our businesses Jeff at Siren Marine, remote vessel monitoring system, startup, all right, new technology, lifestyle, opportunity to work around boats and the like. So I think as companies start to think about attracting quality workforce, you think about sustainability, you think about green initiatives, you think about this blue economy as a roadmap towards that. So I reached out to some clients, and one of these clients is a company called Correct Craft. They're based out of Orlando, Florida. Correct Craft owns 7 or 8 different marine industry companies. They own an engine manufacturer. They own 3 or 4 different boat brands. They own some suppliers. So they're pretty diverse. They've got 6 or 7 factories scattered across the U.S. And we started talking about this subject. And Correct Craft came out with a press release about a month ago that said their goal was to be carbon neutral by 2025. And that's a pretty aggressive step for a company that's in old school, traditional fiberglass boat building for the most part. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? And they said, well, we're going to do that by first understanding our carbon footprint. You know, what are our sources? And let's be clear on what those sources are. And their number one was what it takes to run their manufacturing plants. Okay, that was a big part of the equation for them is 7, 8 manufacturing plants and the carbon footprint that created. The second, and this was an interesting one, was travel for all of their people, boat shows, trade shows, supplier visits, etc. But also shipping and receiving, coming from their suppliers or boats going out to boat dealerships. So that was another one. And so understanding that helped them begin to think a little bit about, okay, well, how can we start to lessen that carbon footprint? And so one of the things they came up with is a boat company they call Ingenuity. And here is, it's a hybrid powered boat. It's a ski wakeboard boat, runs 40 knots, battery pack. And this company is now based in Orlando, and it's sort of one of these type Google X campuses where now all their people want to go work for Ingenuity. And so I started talking to them about, okay, is this starting to attract workforce to you? And they said yes to some degree, but the word's not out quite yet on this. But what it's really doing is it's helping us retain workforce, because people want to be a part of this. They want to be a part of this leading edge, right, save the world, lifestyle type company, and certainly Ingenuity speaks to that. So if you look at what the Senate passed just this week with the new infrastructure bill, and how much of that's going to be allocated towards sustainability, and NOAA, and 46 billion is going to that, and 20 billion to waterway cleanups and the like. So obviously we're on that path. Change is tough, change isn't easy. So I think that more conversations we can have like this are going to, I think, lead to some aha moments for folks in the audience that might take this out into their communities. I think that one of the advantages we have here in Rhode Island, I've said this for a long time, is that we're small, and because we're small, we can collaborate a lot easier. And that starts with an awesome trade association. It starts with an awesome trade school. It starts with some of the best boating out there, best boat yards, marinas, suppliers, etc. So I'm super excited about this. I'm super excited because I think there's a younger generation that is really pumped about what's around the corner. They're inspired by this. They want to be a part of making a difference, and they understand that sustainability and this blue economy can get them there.
Let's open it up for any questions or comments.
Actually, I have a question for Evan, because you take that 1990, Grady White, 17-foot boat, and you take that boat
that's now out of its life cycle, and you're gonna try to take it through your process of breaking it down, and I just wonder about all the components involved, from stainless steel to wiring to mechanical systems, to just get to the sort of fiberglass part of that. How difficult is that, and is there a viable business model for that?
Well, it's not easy. It's time consuming. It's costly. We've had a lot of success, working with folks in a parallel sense, folks who have experience dealing with a lot of messy crap and having experience in extracting stuff, using specialized equipment, using heavy machinery. When we first started envisioning the process as you're describing it, we really wanted to emphasize and build on the expertise and the resources we knew that existed, sort of at the point of origin level, the marinas, the boat yards, the places where these boats are accruing. It's time consuming, it's intensive, and it takes 4 or 5 guys a whole day to really buckle down and get one section of the boat done. So when you're thinking about that on a larger scale, it's certainly daunting, and I think you have to look at, how can you take, the existing expertise of waste management folks and folks that are in, extractive industries, in recycling industries, and looking at, practices that are comparable, compatible. We've had a lot of great conversations with automotive recyclers and folks that unfortunately have a lot more incentive to go after what they're going after, but still can speak to and attest to the difficulties and quite frankly the health and safety considerations that have to go into managing that material bank. So moving forward, there is an opportunity here, I think, for the marine trades to embrace end of life and embrace that dismantling process as a workforce opportunity. And I think that we've talked in the RIMTA office a lot about the opportunities that tearing a boat apart present for someone who may be learning to build boats in the future or learning to design boats in the future. And so there's a lot left to discern when it comes to the efficiency of the dismantling stage. We've relied a lot on folks that have tools that make that process easier and take humans out of the equation, but at the same time we know that boat building expertise, that knowledge of being able to go in and extract this stuff and do it with people that are knowledgeable about boats, that's really important to embrace moving forward. And so having end of life as part of training or as part of workforce development is certainly something that we're continuing to explore.
Well, I just want to comment on that a little bit too, because, there's certainly, as you're saying, Evan, there's, how do you make the end-of-life extraction process, as efficient as possible? But I think ultimately it comes down to how do we build boats, cars that can come apart very efficiently so that we start with a product that's designed to be taken apart at the end of life, as opposed to putting a product together with, screws, bolts, and nuts, and, every other kind of fastener that, takes an individual or, maybe it's hard to imagine how you can take much of that apart with a machine, unless you're just extracting the largest segments of it, as opposed to getting down to clearing everything out, unless you've got a system design that is, I don't know, whether modularity or just fastening system that, you just pull this stuff apart and half an hour the boat's apart.
Yeah, metal is really our biggest adversary, and by no means do we get every bolt and fastener out of every bolt.
I'm sure.
What are you guys doing with like the large, and going exactly to that point, these large manufacturers, the Correct Crafts of the world, the White River Marine Groups that are building 18,000 boats a year, whether aluminum or glass or something like that, and approaching these manufacturers and looking at this circular, economy like that? What steps are being taken, as you say, to start thinking about this and looking at that whole circular way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, boat manufacturers want to continue to sell new boats, right? And hopefully those boats are designed for end of life and for disassembly in more effective ways. But I think that ultimately in our conversations with larger manufacturers, we see an opportunity to use their power in accruing and aggregating boats and incentivizing existing owners to turn in boats before they become abandoned derelict vessels or they become more of a problematic part of that legacy fleet. You can imagine, through a dealership network or through an individual manufacturer offering an incentive such as a rebate, turn your boat in at this date, at this location, and receive 10% off on your next Boston wheel or something along those lines. Obviously, the manufacturers play a big role in determining how we can design better boats, but I think that we've also seen that manufacturers can help us actually get a grip on the boats that are out there, and certainly they have an incentive to see those boats off the secondhand market so that their customers are more likely to purchase a new one.
And the same breath on that, when I first heard about this program, and I said, oh, that sounds great. And then I heard you had to take all the stuff out of the boat. And I was like, I like put boats together, taking all the stuff out is hard.
Yeah.
Part of that, though, I think for you guys is also the consumer education aspect of it, too. Because we could put a hull and deck joint together with bolts, or I could build a better hull and deck joint with glue. You go try to tell a consumer that the boat is glued together, not bolted together, and they don't want that. Even though it's stronger, better.
Yeah.
But I want bolts. Why? Because I do. Okay? So there's a consumer aspect of it. I think it's important to educate the consumer on it too, that there's better technologies and better ways to do this, and also then add to end of life. But in the same breath of that, how far away is it from being profitable or at least neutral?
So, we pay the cement industry to take this stuff. They might have value in the end product, but they provide a waste management service, and so we are paying them, right now $50 a ton to take this stuff in. For us to flip that to a situation where we're paying perhaps a few pennies on the pound or on the ton, you're talking a scale of 10,000 times what we're producing right now. So it's about having volume. Creating and establishing that volume is going to take more than just boats, end of life, or new stuff coming out of a manufacturing bay. It's going to require work with renewable energy. It's going to require work with the automotive sector and anyone who's touching composites and anyone who's dealing with this material at the end of its life cycle. I think that. And I've totally lost my train of thought on where you were. But
Far is the answer.
Yeah.
Far, very far off.
Yeah.
To profitability.
Yeah. Very far.
So one other thought I have about it also is, in the process of manufacturing, there's composite material that's discarded, which is not contaminated with other materials necessarily, maybe just, cut-offs or whatever. Is there a way, sort of like, somebody's got waste oil in their kitchen that gets picked up by somebody, and that somebody uses that for powering some vehicle, or, people who, are working with gold, every filing that comes off of there, they've got, container capturing it because it's got, real value to it. I just wonder, again, looking at it from both ends of the process, what can you do to capture the simplest stuff to capture as well as capture the more difficult stuff to capture?
Yeah, it's all going into that broader spectrum. We found that, because it's not contaminated, because it's not part of that bank, that it's actually really attractive to those end users. We've taken cement industry partners through a composite shop. It's like taking a kid in a candy store, and they're looking at every vacuum infusion hose and everything that touches resin as a potential resource. And so finding a way to make that part of the larger stream and use that as part of a way to buffer what's coming out at the end of the life side of things is really important as well.
Yeah.
What is end of life for a fiberglass boat? In other words, how big is our universe, right? How what do you look at? State registered boats and how many there are and what year they were built. I mean, how do you know how complex, how big this really is?
We don't have a number. It's from a statistics standpoint, we know based on the National Marine Manufacturers Association and their numbers that every year that registered recreational fleet 2% falls off every year. Now, not every boat in that 2% is fiberglass, and we don't know if those boats have been re-registered in other states. We don't know if they've been landfilled. We don't know if they've been stuck in a backyard or a garage. But we do know that 2% is disappearing from the registration rolls every year. As far as the definition of an ELV, the way that I've always kind of looked at it is, as soon as you get to a point where the cost of maintenance and repair eclipse the total value of the vessel itself, that's kind of when you've reached end of life. And I'm sure a lot of boat owners out there would argue with me about that fact, or would say that there's life beyond what's being seen there. But once you reach that eclipse point, that's kind of what I comment.
It all depends on how deep your pump is.
I also think that's changing. I'll give credit where credit is due. Peter Van Lanker, who had been in since the beginning of the industry, or not the beginning, very early on, starting at Boston Whaler and then ending his career at Hunt. The level of quality of the construction of these boats is changing to such a level that, we don't really, a boat that's built today, we don't really know when that's 50 years, 60 years.
And remember, we're only going back to when fiberglass boat was started, 1960s, 65.
We were doing things. Yeah, right.
So it's still relatively new.
Yeah, now we're not, back then they were putting balsa and wood and stuff in the boats. Now there's none. You can't sell anybody a balsa board boat.
Yeah.
So.
Evan, I sort of have a question, or a statement and a question. Consignment shops. Consignment shops around here are excellent. And talking about parting out boats, whether it be the stainless, and then onto the fiberglass. I frequent consignment shops in Wickford, Newport, just to find the right look and quality to add to my vessel. And I think with all price points out there, I think the consignment shops and recycling and upcycling is really important. And I'll spend hours in a consignment shop just to find the right look to bring my vessel to the next level, which I feel like is a really green thing to do, and more of a heritage type thing to find and to value what was made beforehand. Bespoke metal parts are beautiful parts, and when you find something that's really a great stature and quality from a boat that's now going to have a new life, that part on my boat, it's wonderful.
Yeah. It's really important, absolutely.
Yeah, and then I guess going on to breaking down fiberglass and bringing it into its new form. I know it seems like fiberglass pulverization. It goes into then to cement factories. What's the new life of the fiberglass? Like, what kind of products are out there that would be considered a new viable shiny product to recycle this fiberglass? Like,
so in terms of going to like sort of a closed loop, like fiberglass back to being part of a composite product?
Is it specifically in composites as a percentage of a new build, or is it coming out as a certain part, or?
It depends. So I think the people that have had the most success kind of going the chemical recycling route have either done one of two things. They've tried to use some kind of chemical-based solvolysis or really high heat to separate fiber from resin, and then use that resin product and that fiber product in separate purposes. Obviously, after that first life cycle and after going through that process, the constructive quality of the fibers aren't what they were the first life cycle, right? So from a constructive standpoint, that material is great filler or great additive. There are a lot of folks, especially in the European Union, that have worked to combine those fibers with other common waste sources, polystyrene and other polymer-based products to create new materials that have advantageous properties compared to traditional materials, and then trying to take that fiber and put it into something else is something that's been a big challenge. I think sort of a holy grail for composites recycling. Just in the last year, the Marine Trade Association here has joined with the ACMA, the American Composites Manufacturers Association, as part of a project called Remade. And Remade is focused on just that, working to advance technologies that really hone in on taking fiber and taking resin and introducing it back into another composite. And that's something that's being pioneered by some folks at West Virginia University. So we're really hopeful that technology continues to progress and improve, and that the use cases are successful. Again, that's going to involve not just us, but folks on the renewable energy side, on the automotive side. So really looking at all possible sources of this end-of-life material and how it performs in a chemical recycling situation, which is really the golden goal. Yeah.
I have a question for Neal. So when you're recruiting for local firms, if it's a good match in terms of the candidate and the job, what are their decisions around relocation and how competitive are we in Rhode Island?
That's a great question. We relocate as a firm, we relocate about 85% of the candidates we place. So we're intimately involved in relocation. That was one of the primary challenges we had during COVID because nobody wanted to go anywhere. It was sit tight and let's figure this thing out before we're going to pack up the family and move. I would tell you that Rhode Island is certainly not as challenging as some of the areas that we recruit to. I use South Florida as an example. No knock on South Florida, but it's a difficult place to recruit. Remember, most of our recruits are middle to senior level management, so there's typically families involved. So they start looking at not only cost of living, but you look at school systems, you look at quality of life, infrastructure, transportation, etc. So as a search firm, one of the things we try to do very early on as we're vetting a candidate is get engaged and involved with the family dynamic. How old are the kids, and is the spouse working outside of the home, and do you own your home, and do you, one of the things we're running into right now, again, recruiting middle management is elderly care for the parents and the like. So I would tell you that on a 1 to 10 scale, with 10 being the easiest to recruit to and 1 being the hardest, I'd put Rhode Island somewhere around a 6. There's a quality of life factor here that certainly plays in. There's an education system that I think we need to work on, frankly, the public school education system throughout the state. But I think it's probably the quality of life, that lifestyle component that I spoke of earlier is the driver. That, and also how robust the industry, the marine industry is here in the state. That if I come here and I relocate, this might be a stepping stone to the next thing. Or if things don't work out, I might have another job at another boatyard, marina, boat dealership, boat builder, etc.
Hey Neal, how many people from outside the marine industry are you finding to fill in marine positions?
Very few, because we're retained to go find that person that checks all those boxes in terms of the hard skills, the technical experience that one of our clients might be looking for. I got my start in headhunting in the automotive industry, so I came from automotive to marine, and I used to come to a lot of our marine industry clients and say, hey, I got this guy over in automotive, and he's great, and thanks, but we can find that person. I don't need you to go find somebody with the exact expertise that we tasked you to find. Now, having said that, one of our most successful placements was back in 1999, 2000 with the Hinckley Company, based right here in Portsmouth. We were asked to find their director of quality for their boat building facility up in Trenton, Maine. We sourced a candidate from Ford Automotive. He was their quality manager, and today he's Hinckley's COO. So they work, but it's rare. It's very rare. There are some disciplines where you can convert an automotive professional over to boat building. Design and engineering sometimes is one. Human resources is one, but as you get into manufacturing, process engineering, manufacturing engineering, sales, etc. I mean, I can't, Jeff, if I had a nickel for every time I get an unsolicited email from somebody saying, hey, I'm working in the IT industry, but I love boats and I'd love to get into boating, can you help me? I'd love to help that person, but we can't.
Why don't you send it my way?
Now, that said, there is an opportunity for us to go after new blood, that individual that hasn't found that career track or that industry yet. And that's what we're out there trying to do on behalf of the IYRSs of the world, is to get that person, and RIMS is doing a great job with their apprenticeship programs and some other programs, and boat building programs during the summer that they've developed, to try to plant that seed with that individual that not only are these cool jobs and great jobs and jobs that are speaking to sustainability and all these things, but there's a career ladder for you here. There's a career path. We were in a rental workforce meeting just a week ago talking about the challenges we're having right now sourcing entry-level workforce. And that individual now has an opportunity to go make $17 at a fast food joint, right? And so my pushback on that was, again, with all due respect to fast food joints, what kind of career path does that establish for a young person versus getting on the ground level at a boatyard or a boat builder or a marina or investing in a program like IYRS to help jumpstart not a job, but a career?
Yeah, it's interesting, because I literally just before coming over here for this panel discussion, we were talking with our career development person and director of education about exactly that. How do you get people to understand that this isn't just what do I make when I first start, but it's where can I go from there? And I think going back to a comment you had about working for the biggest and best, I think a lot of our students have been attracted to companies that allow for some, they can see where there might be a career path. Other people are looking for the lifestyle things, so they'll work for a small boatyard, because they just want, they like the intimacy of that as opposed to a big place where they can move up into management. So I think a lot of the decision-making about where to go is luckily in the hands of our students right now. But I think one thing I try to reinforce for them is that you're not necessarily going to make the salary that you want when you start, because you're just starting your job. You're just getting on the career path. Think about it, look at it as a 5-10 year kind of pathway, whether you stay at that company or not. But there is a pathway, which is, I think, the important thing that you're talking about.
Yes, and let's not forget that our industry has been guilty of underpaying for years and years, and therefore we wonder why we lose quality workforce, can't attract quality workforce. So I think there's a, that's right. You have to communicate. I was just on the phone right before I came over here with a young man. We're trying to relocate from Eastern Shore, Maryland down to South Florida. We can't quite get him to the compensation number that he thinks he needs to be, and it was one of these, you're 5 years into your career, they're affording you a nice increase, and are you willing to go pay your dues a little bit? And so I think educating young people on that, yet at the same time recognizing as an industry, we've got to be more competitive when it comes to wages. One of the good things coming out of all this demand for talent for our industry, and I think this speaks for industry as a whole, is that we're finally seeing a wage increase, fairly substantial across the board. And so I think to remain competitive, we need to continue that trend. But also, it's, frankly, I'm not real keen on the individual who's solely motivated by money. When I call a candidate and I pitch them a job and I say, hey, this is a candidate, I know I called you, but what's your motivation to consider a job change? And she tells me money, then I've got a little bit of a yellow flag going up. Because the next recruiter or company that approaches that individual says, hey, I'll pay you another $1 an hour if you'll come down the street, then we may have just lost that person. So I want the person that wants to talk to me about an anticipated career path, and the ability to impact, and the ability to work for a company that, again, presents an awesome lifestyle opportunity or is involved in sustainability. These are the kind of things that make a candidate attractive to me, and I advise our clients all the time too. We don't do a good enough job as an industry communicating what these anticipated career paths might look like.
Well, I think that's a big issue, I think. I would venture to say that, just thinking about the state of Rhode Island and the student population that's here, their awareness of what one can potentially earn, the career path that one can potentially have, is somewhat understood, but not as well understood as it needs to be.
Agreed. What does Rhode Island do, though, about in terms of staying competitive when you're competing with both sides of the spectrum. What my burden labor rate was running a plant here in Rhode Island, and what my burden labor rate was running a plant in North Central Florida. To be clear, most of my workforce here was coming out of Florida. And you buy a house in Florida for $250,000. In Zephyr Hills, Florida, you can purchase a home for $18,000. You can buy a shed for $80,000. What do we? That's a huge hurdle. What do we do about that as an industry? It's a problem.
Well, I think it's more than just our industry's problem. I think it's a statewide problem, just in terms of workforce retention, workforce, even attracting workforce here. Housing and transportation, I feel, are two of the biggest hurdles that the state has to deal with. Because you could have somebody potentially living 30 miles away if you had an express bus to get them down to, some part of the state that they're not, living in. But if you don't have the transportation to do that, then they have to live closer, and if they're living closer means paying more housing, just limit your options.
It's a huge problem. We talked about moving Quantum from Bristol, and every single one of the employers in Florida said they were going to go work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Then in Florida, I had employees making $13 an hour driving an hour and 15 minutes every morning to come to work.
Crazy.
Who am I?
Yeah.
Drive where for what?
Yeah, and we're not alone there either.
We are alone.
Massachusetts is dealing with the same with what is NJM. Opens a factory in eastern North Carolina. You look at those states with traditional manufacturing backgrounds, and I mean, you think of Rhode Island might be drive through Fall River, and you think, but with North Carolina as an example, losing textile and furniture manufacturing in the 80s and 90s, they had a ready-to-go workforce, and then the state was giving incredible incentives for boat builders and manufacturers to relocate there, and it happened. We saw a huge boom in eastern North Carolina of boat builders, and the same thing just happened 2 years ago with NJM, which is a boat builder just outside of Boston, relocating a significant portion of their boat building operations to eastern North Carolina for the same reason: cost of labor, cost of doing business.
Yeah, and unfortunately for jobs, the only way to deal with that I saw here was to figure out manufacturing processes to cut labor.
Right.
Yeah, which
Which doesn't.
depending on the nature of the work, it's really difficult to do. Robotics have not invaded the world of putting boats together. They're very too complicated. I mean, even though you see it obviously in automotive fields, robotics are doing a lot of stuff, but that has not really happened in, and of course that's going to drive wage jobs. It's not going to create jobs, but it's I think it'd be somewhat inevitable that there has to be some kind of a move to automated, manufacturing in the boat world for it to keep affordable for people to purchase boats too. So that's another big issue.
Hey, Molly, I know we're getting up against our timeline here. I've got one for Jay. As successful as your IYRS programs have been, and I'm right in the middle of that, because every client I talk to says, Neal, we need a general manager, but by the way, we need 16 qualified technicians. It is probably the biggest challenge for our industry right now, is the disappearance of trades workforce. I'm wondering if you guys have ever considered replicating your model to other regions, South Florida, Eastern North Carolina, wherever that may be. Is it too risky because of the nature of our industry with the peaks and valleys, or is it something where we're just big enough and we found our sweet spot, and so we're gonna stick to what we know, or has it been discussed around the round table that hey, we can do this in other places?
I think we could, but quite honestly, the capital expenditure to do that would be really significant. When I look at the investment we made in the facility that has a marine system, digital modeling, fabrication, and composites program. For us to do that, we would need a business partner. We would need to get a company, say a safe harbor type company, to say, we want to replicate what IYRS does in, pick a state far enough away from us so we're not competing for the same students, but we would need to have a partner who is willing to put up capital and invest in that, and that's probably the biggest challenge to us in doing it. I definitely have people who have inquired about that and said, why don't you come down to, or come over to, there's interest in seeing what we do being replicated elsewhere, because there are only 3 other independent schools like IYRS in the country. Great Lakes School out in Michigan, Land School up in Maine, and the Northwest School of Wood and Boat Building out in Tacoma area, not Tacoma, but north of Seattle. And we're the largest school, so everybody else is turning out 36, 25, 50 students a year. We're turning out close to 90 a year. So we are not populating a lot of people. There are certainly plenty of other alternative schools that are doing specialized work, but they're not sort of bringing all those different trades together in one location. They're essentially focusing on a single trade, maybe 2 trades, but not in the same way that schools like ours are doing. But I think, for the marine trades to have enough people, it's got to be a multi-pronged task, although frankly, I would be really happy if our partners in the trades would identify people from their circle of employees and friends to say, come to IYRS, I work in the marine trades, you go to IYRS, you could come out and work in the marine trades, and you have a great experience. That kind of word of mouth is like gold to us. And, our alumni are probably some of our best recruiters because they've gone through the IYRS experience and they're out in the field, they've been successful, and they tell other people about it. We get alumni who recruit for us all the time, whether they know it or not. They're doing.
Jay, I have a question
Yeah.
kind of along those lines. Do you keep statistics of your alumni or your graduates and how long they stay in the industry and what those look like?
Yeah, it's hard to get alumni to answer surveys, but we just sent one out just this year. I think we had 24 people who answered out of hundreds who could have answered this survey. It's difficult to get people to really respond to it. I think the good news was, going back to, is this a job or is this a career path? The people who stayed in the industry reported, at various stages of their career, but they reported increasing compensation, and it looked like substantial increases depending on how long they've been in the trades. And also increasing responsibility, authority, management, opportunities, all of those kinds of things that, for the right person who wants to move up into management, as opposed to the person who just wants to be a senior technician. There's all those opportunities that are there that were reflected in the survey that we got back. I just wish factor, I forget what that is in statistics, but the number was bigger. Number of responses was bigger.
I gotta get you guys out of here, so. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Ken. It was wonderful. Thanks again. We'll hopefully come back next week.
If anybody wants to